if you are in credit card debt, there's not much else you really should be doing financially outside of paying off that debt, with the small caveat that having an emergency fund is really important, right? So have an emergency fund, but you shouldn't be investing if you have high interest credit card debt because, it's never going to math out. You shouldn't be using a credit card to earn rewards if you have high interest credit card debt because that's not going to math out, right? I just said there isn't really a great solution out there for those who are working on paying off credit card debt. The first step is really to stop using the credit cards and switch to a debit card.
Hey, future CRNA, welcome to the CSBA podcast. CSBA has helped over 3,000 nurses like you gain acceptance into schools across the country. Tune in for inspiration and actionable takeaways to help you from start to finish.
Well, hello, future CRNA. Welcome back to CSBA podcast. I'm going to do something a little different in this episode, kind of shake things up. Today, we're going to talk about going into CRNA school with credit card debt and what that actually would look like. For those of you listening who are planning on CRNA school, even if it's years away, this episode is for you. If you're already in the trenches of applying to CRNA school or even being accepted to CRNA school, I still think this is going to give you a good listen because I want you to be very aware of what can happen in this vicious cycle of credit card debt. Paying for CRNA school is incredibly challenging. For those of you part of CSBA, you know that we bring in a certified financial planner for free education on financial planning to you every single quarter. Her name is Natalie Kretzer with Thrivent Financial. She's wonderful. So if you're a part of CSBA or if you're not a part of CSBA, run to the door and join today. But take part in those sessions. It's free and it's a wealth of information to really help you financially prepare for your CRNA journey. But first, before I dive into the meat of this episode, I wanted to kind of give you some context on credit card debt and what that may look like and just kind of throwing out some examples. Because if you're like me, it's kind of hard to contextualize credit card debt. It's like one of those things that you know is bad, but you don't know how bad it can get or how quickly it can spiral out of control because the math is really complicated and it can be, kind of difficult to figure out what happens if I spend this and I don't pay it off till, this amount of time. But luckily, I have had the help with AI to kind of figure these things out. So I can give you really accurate numbers so you can kind of get a picture of, oh my gosh, this is a big deal. This is why people always talk so fearfully of being careful with credit cards. So let's go ahead and share some examples with you. So just to kind of give you some context, the average APR, which stands for annual percentage rate, varies between 16 and 25%. If you have really good credit, probably above a 700, I would say, you're going to have on the lower end of that spectrum. But if you have a lower credit score, you're going to probably have on the higher end of that spectrum, like 25%, maybe more, depending on how poor your credit is. And of course, credit cards will tempt you with a 0% introductory rate of 0% APR. I've fallen victim to that numerous times. The key with that is to be very careful that you have a really good game plan on how you make sure that you don't end up accruing interest once that 0% APR offer wears off. But let's just say, equally, I've talked to Natalie a lot, and she cringes when she has students come to her and say, I want to go to CRNA school, but I have $40,000 of credit card debt. That's so hard to work around. And you're going to understand why when I'm done kind of explaining these numbers to you. But let's just put it like a lower number. And let's just say maybe you have $4,000 of credit card debt. This is, again, something that you carry, you pay the minimum payments on every month, and you've just kind of gotten used to it. It's kind of where it hangs out. It's right around $4,000. And let's just say you choose to go back to CRNA school and you're like, you know what? I am not spending another single dollar on this credit card. I'm going to start using debit card only. I'm just not going to spend another drop. I'm going to focus on just making the minimum payments over the next 3 years so I can not have more debt when I'm done with school. I want to just share with you what that would look like. If you went into CRNA school with $4,000 of credit card debt, knowing that all you can possibly do while you're in school is a minimum payment. And let's just say you have 18% APR, which is on the lower end of what it could be, right? I set the 25%. So we just did 18%. Now let's just say they make you pay 2% of your balance every month. So let's just say 2% for this example. And again, you're going to be in CRNA school for 36 months or 3 years. So initial balance, $4,000, which if you make the minimum payment, which is 2%, $80. So $4,000 balance, minimum payment, $80. You pay that. And what portion of that $80 goes towards that $4,000 balance versus the interest rate at 18%? The answer is only $20 goes towards your balance. And the rest of it, the rest of that, the $60 goes towards interest. So again, you've only on $4,000, you made an $80 payment. Your new balance is $3,980. Kind of depressing already, right? You're like, oh man, $20, that's it? Yeah, that's it. So let's just say, again, you don't spend a single dime on this credit card and you just keep paying these minimum payments through grad school. By the end of grad school, by the end of 36 months, that same $4,000 credit card will have a new balance of $3,339.57. Okay. So that means you will only decreased your balance by $661 by paying the minimum payment on it for over 3 years. But now the real question gets to be, how much have you paid in total? Meaning, how much interest have you actually paid in that 3 years? You have paid over $4,130 of interest, more than double what your balance started at. So you essentially have paid more than double in just interest alone, with only hitting $660 of interest or principal, your balance. So that's really depressing, right? Oh my gosh, I just paid on this for 3 years and I still owe $3,339. I've paid in total over $4,791. That's a really hard thing to swallow. So I wanted to just paint this picture, and I'm not trying, I guess I am trying to scare you. I want you to be careful, and I want to see you make smart decisions prior to going to CRNA school to make sure this does not happen to you, because that's just really unfortunate. Now, you had no other choice. You're already kind of in it. You're like, well, it's too late. I got to just deal with what I have, how the cards have been dealt kind of thing. Know that, if you have a $3,339 balance when you're done with CRNA school, just use your first paycheck. Say, you know what, we're going to, the biggest or the smartest thing you can do when you're done with CRNA school is to keep living at your current living arrangements for several months after CRNA school, and then take all that money that you are as extra at that point, and then put it towards things like this. So pay it off of that first paycheck. That would be my suggestion. Don't carry it any longer than you have to. Just get rid of it when you're done with CRNA school. When you get that first paycheck, it's already gone and you already spent it. So, well, part of it anyways. That's not all of it. You'll get more than $3,000 for your first paycheck. Don't freak out. But it's going to be a big chunk of it, especially, if you're starting at a new grad pay. I would say, you can probably expect take home, depending on, again, your hourly rate, to be right around anywhere from $5,000 to $6,000 on a biweekly schedule. So $12,000 a month. Again, this can vary a lot. So don't, eat my words in stone, but just know that that's probably a ballpark to estimate about what you'll make every other week. It's about $6,000. So again, if you had to pay this credit card off, I think you could easily do that. All right. So another situation is, let's just say you have this $4,000 of credit card debt going into CRNA school, but you have some additional spending needs when you're in CRNA school. Maybe you need a new tire for your car. Maybe you need, maybe 1 month you're kind of tight on groceries, or maybe you want to go out to dinner with some friends. Maybe you want to, splurge a little bit over spring break and go on a little mini vacation, or maybe you're in a friend's wedding, or, there's all kinds of things that come up in life that maybe aren't in your typical day-by-day budget. So you use this credit card to maybe put on average an extra $500 a month of spending on this card over 36 months. This is scenario number 2. All right. So in this scenario, let's just kind of skip to the point and keep in mind, as you keep adding money to this credit card, your minimum is going to go up every month. So we said initially the minimum payment was $80, right? Well, by month 6 of adding $500 a month to the same credit card, your minimum payment now is $127. By month 24, that minimum payment is $289. And by month 36, that minimum payment is $388. This could be a real problem, especially if you're on a fixed income and you're like, I can't afford that minimum payment. You can really get yourself in a lot of trouble really, really quickly if this happens to you. So I wanted to make sure I point that out, that even though you're adding money to this card, your minimum payments are going to go up every month because of it. So, and sometimes that makes it so you can't even afford to pay the minimum payments. And that, you get slapped with more fees and things of that nature. So that is, again, something you don't want to run into. But okay, you've spent the money over 36 months. Now this credit card, instead of $4,000 at the end of 36 months, is $19,850 at the end of your 36 months. Now, you did put $500 a month over 36 months onto this credit card, right? I mean, okay, that's spending $18,000, right? In 3 years, $500 a month. So the total interest paid over this period of 3 years is $6,449, with the total paid over 36 months being $8,598. So you've paid $8,500 to spend $1,800 more dollars, but a chunk of that is just interest. It's not going towards your principal. So again, you're left with $19,850 at the end of that 3 years. And so again, the way that breaks down is, if you think about it, you've essentially, with your minimum payments being paid, which is 8.6K, let's just say, you still have this remainder 19.8K left to pay off, making your total that you will have paid $28,400. And that's only if you can pay off that lump sum of $19,000 when you're done with school, which, let's just say, is probably, I just told you kind of what your average take home is biweekly. So let's just, you're not going to pay that off in the first month after CRNA school. Maybe if you busted your butt and worked a ton of overtime, but typically in your first month, you're not going to be doing that. So more than likely, you're going to carry this balance with you for a couple months after you graduate from CRNA school. That overall $19,000 could go higher than that. So I just want to point out there that this is a pretty hefty price to pay to carry credit card debt in CRNA school. And I just want so badly for that not to happen to you. And I want you to plan for this. I want you to understand, the ramifications of having, don't get me wrong, you need a credit card, right, to build up credit and be able to take out loans and things of that nature. But you just have to be so careful. And going to CRNA school is such a unique event in your life, something that you've really never experienced before, because not being able to hold a steady full-time job of any kind, even a part-time job, can be really, really hard to kind of figure out your finances, especially if you've been out of school for a while and you've been really used to your lifestyle. It may take really dramatic measures to really adjust your lifestyle to fit the financial restraints of being in CRNA school. So again, if you're part of CSBA, I hope you take advantage of our free financial planning with a certified financial planner, Natalie Kretzer. She's wonderful. Make sure you register for the next event. She does it every quarter, and we always post the next one on our dashboard inside CSBA. And now to introduce the rest of the episode, because that was just an intro to kind of paint some context around why this is a big deal and essentially why I thought this was an important episode to bring to you. So Vrinda Gupta is the founder of Sequin, which is a debit card. But here's the kicker, which is why I thought this was so interesting. Something, if I had known about it back when I was in CRNA school, I would have been very interested in this. It's a debit card, you guys, but it accrues interest like a high yield savings account. So you can actually earn money by just having a debit card. Why have the banks not done this? Why? Because they make so much money on you paying these credit card fees. So they don't want to incentivize you to pay via debit card. So she actually has her background. She worked through Chase. So she has a background in developing a rewards program at Chase. And she just equally was like, this is a huge problem. I want to solve this. People are going into debt because they want a rewards credit card. And then they don't know how to manage it effectively. And then they kind of spend the rest of their lives battling this credit card debt. So this Sequin card is a debit card. So you can't overspend. Again, it's like cash. But uniquely, if you keep a balance in it, you're going to earn a high yield interest rate like you would on a high yield savings account. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the rest of today's show. Hello, and welcome back to CRNA School Prep Academy podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Finnell, and today we have a very special guest episode with Vrinda, who actually started a company called Sequin. And our topic today is going to be going into CRNA school with credit card debt. We're going to unpack this, you guys. I'm so excited to have you on the show. Welcome to the show, Vrinda.
Thank you for having me. I can't wait to have this conversation.
Yes, me too. And this is a common pain point amongst CRNA hopefuls that are kind of like, not only are they worried about how to pay for CRNA school, but then some of them may not have, they may have some outstanding credit card debt. And so we're here to kind of help with your background, which I would love for you to share more about, kind of help unpack this issue. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind sharing with our audience kind of how you got started in this venture of Sequin.
Yes, absolutely. So super excited to chat. So as background, I started off my career at Visa and I was building many popular credit cards. And my focus was actually building rewards programs and popular credit cards like the Chase Sapphire Reserve. And I applied for the credit card that I helped create and I was actually rejected.
That's crazy.
And, as a first generation immigrant, I watched my mom really struggle with the financial system. And that was actually one of the reasons I wanted to work at Visa, was to just understand a really important part of everyday life and goals, and finances touch everything. And when I was rejected, I just realized that there was so much more for me to know. But also, if I was having these bad experiences in the credit world from having built these products, what is happening to so many other people, especially women and minorities and those who might not have had, the benefit of financial education passed down from our parents, right? That really is a privilege. And it just got me thinking about the state of finances today and whether there is a way that we could do better and really create a financial system and a platform that centers the need of women and minorities. And what we see is, when you build for that population, it works, the products work better for everyone. So I know that the listeners here do not all only identify as women. Our product is open to everyone, but it does kind of work where, you meet the needs of those who need it the most, and it works for everyone else.
Yeah, no, I love it. And actually, so I was going to say this for a little bit later, but I'm sure everyone's kind of like, well, what is Sequin? Because kind of what you have built is very unique. So maybe we should just kind of get right into that. Yeah. And then we can kind of dive into the credit card debt aspect after that.
I would love it. Yeah. So, as I was building these credit cards, I was focused so much on rewards. And when I went out after I got rejected and tried to understand what is the problem with the financial system, the conversations I kept on having were, I am in credit card debt and I really like rewards. I want to play that game. My favorite influencer is talking about that, but I am in credit card debt. What do I do? And my answer to that was, if you are in credit card debt, there's not much else you really should be doing financially outside of paying off that debt, with the small caveat that having an emergency fund is really important, right? So have an emergency fund, but you shouldn't be investing if you have high interest credit card debt, because it's never going to math out. You shouldn't be using a credit card to earn rewards if you have high interest credit card debt, because that's not going to math out, right? And so I just said there isn't really a great solution out there for those who are working on paying off credit card debt. The first step is really to stop using the credit cards and switch to a debit card.
And for those of you listening who are planning on CRNA school, if you have the time, the time is of the essence. So paying off your credit cards is one of the very first things you should really do prior to even applying to CRNA school, because you do not want to carry that into CRNA school when your income becomes very fixed or even limited. And then you end up paying loans with loans, which I've been there. So not ideal, not fun. I would love to kind of dive now into, how credit cards work. I know, part of your Sequin has, a community aspect where you do a lot of education. So yes. I'd love to pick your brain on this aspect and kind of dig into, help educate our listeners on what does it mean to have a credit card and what are some of the best options out there to have if you needed one.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this question. And the reason I love it is because very few of us are actually taught on how credit cards work when we get them, right? It feels fun and games. It's like, okay, great, I'm going to get some rewards. This is free money. But what we're not taught is credit card interest is some of the highest interest that there is out there in terms of loan options. So, and as of this week, credit card interest rates are over 25%. And I know you and I talked about this, Jenny, but if I came up to you and I said, Jenny, here's, free money, you'd be like, okay, great. But if I was like, Jenny, here's free money, quote unquote, but you're going to owe me over 25% on every single one of those dollars. And the money that you owe me is actually going to compound on itself. So whatever you owe is going to owe more and more. I don't think any of us would take that deal. But the challenge is these cards, your favorite influencer is promoting it, your favorite actress is promoting it, and you're like, you know what, everyone has them. It's okay. And I think that's one of the pieces that is really important to understand is, how does a credit card work, right? What is a credit card? What's a debit card? And the difference between the two is, a debit card, it's your own money immediately. So when you go to pay, let's say you're at Target and you swipe a debit card, that money is connected to your bank account. And so the money is going to come out of your bank account to pay Target, right? So the difference is, when you have a credit card, it's kind of like an IOU. So let's say your credit card is with Chase, for example, and you go to Target and you say, okay, I'm making a payment. Basically, what happens is Chase is like, okay, I'll spot you up until the end of the month. And then at the end of the month, you have a few options to pay me back. So one option is you can pay me back in full, right? Let's say the total you spent at Target was $100. So Chase is like, at the end of the month, pay me $100. I'll give that to you without any interest. And it's like, okay, great. And that really is the best way to use a credit card, right? Is to use it like a debit card to pay it off on time and in full every single month if possible. Right. So that's one. The second option is you can pay some other amount, right? You can pay, let's say you only want to pay $50 of the 100 that you owe. Then Chase is like, great, give me the 50, no interest on that. The other 50, I am going to charge you interest. And next month, that $50 that you have remaining is going to start having the interest applied to it. And let's say at the end of next month, you don't pay it off in full. The next month, the interest that you accrued the month before is also going to compound and cost you the month after that. So anything you pay that's not in full is going to be costing you interest. And the challenge with credit card interest is that, okay, you can start making the payment, but there's still that initial amount, right? That initial $100 or that initial $50 that's left in our example, that is going to keep on earning interest, and you're going to be in this cycle of paying that off because you're not getting to what we call as the principal, right? The main part. So other options are paying the minimum, right? That'll keep your account going. And it feels like nice, right? It's like I have access to money and I only have to pay $35 for it a month, but they're not really telling you, okay, how much is that actually costing you? And I will share one kind of not so fun fact anecdote that I learned was when credit cards were created, they actually worked with behavioral economists and said, how do we get people to pay credit card interest, right? Because that's how these companies make money. And that's where the minimum payment came in. And they said, if we give someone that option, they'll most likely take it. And that's how, these are big companies that are really smart. So I just want to say that if you are in credit card debt and you're working on paying that off, it is not your fault that you're in this situation. It makes sense, right? It's free money, or so you think, until you actually kind of peel the layers of the onion and, it becomes a situation where it's challenging to pay off. And every single day you wait to start paying that off is just more and more interest, which is incredibly stressful. It's not something I wish upon, my worst enemy.
Yeah. And it is, it's like and eventually that minimum payment grows, right? Because the balance is going to grow. Mm-hmm. And like you said, you get stuck in the cycle of only paying the interest and the balance just keeps growing. And then you become to the point where you just can't pay it. And that's usually how like people have bankruptcy and potentially lose their house and everything else. So, oh gosh. Yeah. So I would love we kind of talked about how the interest payments work if you don't pay it off. Let's kind of slip into more of a positive thing though.
Yes, I feel like you started in this like scary, fearful way.
Yeah. But it's nonetheless, people need to be informed before they make these decisions. But how can you best maximize the rewards if you're going to have a credit card?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, the best way to use a credit card is to use it like a debit card. And so at the end of the month, whenever your statement due date is, I want you to pay that off in full. And actually, if you are in a privilege where you don't have any revolving credit card debt is debt that you're actually paying interest on, not what you've accrued until the end of the month. I even recommend paying off your credit card once a week because that'll really help your credit score. And that's kind of a hack that we share in our Sequin community is do the payments once a week. And on average, we've seen credit scores go up 20 points in just a week. And I've actually had some women come to me and say, my credit score went up 200 points, just in the last few weeks doing this trick. So, but yeah, just anytime you're not paying credit card interest, that is the best way to maximize credit card rewards, right? You're living within your means and you're just putting all of that on a credit card. So that's who I recommend credit to, right? And if you do not have credit card debt or you don't think you're going to be susceptible to credit card debt, then I always recommend a credit card. Put all of your spending on a great rewards credit card and maximize the heck out of those points, right? And we can have that conversation. But unfortunately, so many of us are working on credit card debt. So again, if you are in that situation, a rewards card is never going to have you come out on top.
Yeah, I love that. And one thing that I didn't, this is maybe like a personal side of my experience with it, but growing up, I love you, mom and dad, but I watched them play that game and juggle credit cards. And it can be a really positive thing if like you said, you kind of pay those statement balances and don't overspend on your credit cards. But it's so tempting when you really want something, especially like a big purchase where you're like, well, I can't afford it now, but maybe by the time the statement balance is due, I will. And then you're kind of playing that risky game. And I mean, now they have all kinds of things like the Affirm or
Affirm, yeah.
Affirm, yeah, Affirm.
Yeah.
And all kinds of options now. Yeah. So, but again, those can be dangerous too. If you, because I mean, sometimes I think people are like, oh, I'll have the money, I'll just work for overtime. Yeah. Well, what if you can't? Because what if you get sick and you have to cancel some of the overtime? Or what if they don't have as many shifts as they normally do for you at the hospital for overtime? Or, I mean, there's all kinds of things that can come up. What if you have an emergency visit with one of your kids or your car breaks down and now you have this unexpected expense? And it's really empowering to say you can use a debit card to make sure you're holding yourself accountable to only spend what you have and really question your spending prior to doing it. So I think this is great.
A lot of the women we talked to, they were like, I'm not investing because I have credit card debt, right? And again, that math's not going to math. Like you need to pay off the credit card debt before you invest. Or this idea of having your money in multiple places for whatever reason just didn't seem appealing. And we're a judgment-free zone, right? You know, we always say, be growing your money if possible. But if that just doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. And that's fine. And I think what's detrimental is when there are these pre-prescribed ways of saying you have to be managing your finances this way, or what works, the best way to do it, like that just might not work for you. And so what we said was, okay, well, you have different options to grow your money. You could put your money in a high yield savings account. But if you are living more paycheck to paycheck, especially if you're a student, right? I remember being a student and, you know, money's tight, right? And so you still want to be growing your money. A dirty secret with your big bank checking account is they're earning a lot of money on your money that's sitting with them because they lend it out to other people, right? Or other institutions. And then they keep that money. We actually just pass that back to you.
Very cool. Well, thank you so very much. How can people find you, connect with you?
You can follow along with us at sequin_card. We're on all the platforms, but it's sequin_card. We're the most active on Instagram and on TikTok. So you can follow us there.
Thank you, Brenda. It's such a pleasure having you, and hats off to you. I'm so excited for what you're developing.
Thanks so much for supporting, Jenny. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to head over to CRNAschoolprepacademy.com to gather free resources to help you on your CRNA journey. Stay strong. We're rooting for you, future CRNA.